Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Leffel, representing Terapio today, and I'd like to talk to you about a unique opportunity to get involved in the development of a new therapeutic to treat radiation sickness. This is important because right now, no treatment exists. When individuals are exposed to ionizing radiation, they will get radiation sickness due to cell damage. This can cause cataracts, multiple organ damage, and cancer. In the general population, people are exposed to ionizing radiation, possibly from a deliberate terror attack or nuclear accidents and the cleanup thereafter. Clearly, space tourists are at high risk, in addition to astronauts, for radiation sickness due to solar flares or cosmic rays. In fact, on the space station, when an astronaut spends 6 months, they've received equivalent doses of radiation of 480 chest X-rays. The average person in a year receives approximately equivalents of 2 chest X-rays. The solution is RLIP 76. We have phenomenal non-clinical efficacy data for this product. When mice have been irradiated with multiple lethal doses of radiation and then treated with our RLIP 76 protein, there's greater than 90% survival compared to 20% in untreated controls. That's shown in the graph on the left. The graph on the right shows you that if you use a very small dose of RLIP 76 and administer it an entire day, 24 hours after lethal doses of radiation, there's still 100% survival in treated mice. The human recombinant RLIP 76 protein is produced by E. coli fermentation. The drug is then formulated into proteoliposomes by a scalable process. It's incredibly efficacious in acute doses to high exposure radiation. In addition to that, we think it's going to be very effective for long-term therapy because it's a naturally occurring protein. There aren't suspected toxic side effects, which is always a risk when you're developing a drug, and we think FDA licensure will not be a problem. Now that you know the problem is there's no treatment for radiation sickness, and the solution is RLIP 76, let's talk about how it works. This is a cartoon of a healthy cell. Reactive oxygen species and other metabolites are produced during natural mechanisms. The RLIP 76 is a transport protein in the membrane that takes these toxic components out of the cell. When a cell is exposed to injury, such as ionizing radiation, these toxic metabolites build up, overwhelming the RLIP 76 transport system. Our encapsulated proteoliposome adds to the RLIP 76 that's already in the cell, allowing the transport system to work more efficiently and basically detoxifying the cells. Our current customers are primarily the United States government. The various agencies are shown here. There is an opportunity for the international market, but within the United States, it's anticipated there's about a $700 million a year market. In fact, BARDA alone has awarded $56 million in contracts to only 5 companies, and we believe we would receive similar or even greater awards because RLIP 76 has a very unique mechanism of action. In addition to that mechanism of action being unique, it allows us to have multiple medical applications, not only as a radiation or a chemical countermeasure, but in diseases of the CNS and oncology. RLIP 76 can be repurposed from an oncology supportive medication into a radiation countermeasure, which also makes it attractive to the government. Our future market would be space tourism or space settlements, which is anticipated to be a billion-dollar industry in less than 10 years. Terapio expects charging $2,500 a week to a space tourist for prophylactic RLIP 76 treatment. Of course, astronauts are the critical unmet need that we're most interested in, even though it's a smaller number of people. Long-term space travel or spacewalks have high risk to radiation exposure. NASA, of course, would receive a highly discounted rate on price per dose, being a government agency, and being able to repurpose the drug in the strategic national stockpile that's managed by the Centers for Disease Control. Our path to FDA approval will be via the animal rule. Because it's unethical to test efficacy of our drug in people, you can't expose people to ionizing radiation just to test your drug. We'll be using animal models, and this requires us to get an investigational new drug license by the beginning of 2014, which will move into clinical trials and have FDA licensure by the end of 2016. Either of these points would be possible exit strategies by acquisition of the company, but the most lucrative one would be FDA licensure. When we deliver the medical countermeasure to the strategic national stockpile, That'll be the opportunity for the most revenue. But more importantly, it's the best opportunity for someone to have been involved in the development of the licensure of the very first treatment for radiation sickness. Our CEO has been a CEO of 5 successful biotechnology firms. In addition, he's an aerospace engineer and greatly understands the application that this could be for NASA. Our key partners include private industry, state and federal government, and universities. In conclusion, our key milestones have been the completion of 50 non-clinical efficacy trials where we've had really good clinical data and great prospects of taking this to clinical trials. We have increased production by 50 times, making this a scalable manufacturing process, and we expect our first revenue in 2016 at FDA licensure. Our request for Series B financing is $10 million to match the federal government revenue, and we estimate $15 million in Series C investment to get us to FDA licensure in 2016. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take questions.
I guess I'll start.
Okay.
I think this is very interesting. I guess I have 2 questions. The first one is, I know you obviously can't test on people unless they're already exposed to radiation. And so is there potential for people to offer themselves as guinea pigs if the only other alternative is death?
There is if we have a clinical protocol written ahead of time and have already gotten our investigational new drug license. So we're a couple years away from doing that, but yes, that's a possibility. The other attraction is if we do pursue an oncology supportive medication, we would obviously have clinical trials in real people with problems, and that data could support the radiation countermeasure application.
And would it take, you know, the cataracts and things like this, would they take those away? And how does it come out the radiation come out of your system?
Well, that's a very good question. I don't think it would take the cataracts away. That would be prevention is what you would be looking at in something like cataracts. And it wouldn't actually reduce the radiation level in your body. It would just help the cells detoxify and then prevent further cell death and further cell damage. So once the damage has happened, RLIP 76 probably could not rescue that.
2 questions. One, for the space application, you're talking about persistent, long-term, 24/7 radiation exposure as opposed to an event that you then detoxify from.
Right.
So can you talk a little bit about the efficacy of your drug for, you know, continual, you may take it for 6 months or even longer if you're going to Mars, right? If you're taking it every day for 3 years, what do you think happens to the, you know, the cell structures or whatever? And then second question, you talked about a price point of, say, $2,500 for per week for space tours, and that's obviously a small percentage of what they're paying for the ride. But talk a little bit about the margins, what it will cost you when you scale to, you know, produce a week's worth of
Okay.
of the chemical.
Okay. First question, taking it for long term for 6, 12, 18 months. If we were to pursue that application, we would have to do longer term toxicology studies than we have planned. Right now, we have given in some of our non-clinical studies up to 9 doses without seeing adverse events in the mice. That's giving it from something between every 6 hours up to every 18 or 24 hours. I would expect that there would be no problems taking it for longer terms. NASA has done a lot of research in just giving basic antioxidants prophylactically because this is a naturally occurring protein that's in your cells anyway. It shouldn't be any problems taking it long term. The second question was projections of cost for scale up.
Well, profit margin.
Profit margin. Okay. Perhaps we have estimated too low of a possible cost we could charge per dose, but that would, the $2,500 a week per dose would, we have expected, would certainly carry us with a very good profit margin. The actual percentage that was calculated of a difference of a profit margin, I would have to look that up. I don't know that.
The whole story here sounds very compelling. You know, you've got terrific progress so far with the data, with the mice. You have the IP coverage. You've got the partners, all that, and you've had something like over $10 million in financing already. And
That's right.
I didn't see anything in your plan write-up or even here that suggests what this $100,000 prize here would help you do to make any more progress than you're already making. And I'm just wanting to hear something about how this would help you out.
Okay, can I go back slides? It's just better if you see this visual. Halfway down the slide, you see the long bar that says toxicology studies. That's all performed in animals, and there are a series of 5 to 8 studies that have to be performed to get that IND licensure, the small block, to allow you to go to clinical trials. The $100,000 would help accelerate that toxicology block. We could do more studies in parallel, so we may be able to do 3 or 4 in parallel and shorten that block in half rather than doing them sequentially.